So first of all, I just really want to thank John Moritz for an excellent job moderating the energy panel. I think we all learned a lot. John did wonderfully, asked those really good questions that he does as a reporter. So this has all been recorded, and so if you ever want to go back and take a look and see what particular issues were addressed or repeat stuff, it's going to be posted on our website and segmented out, so you all can be following up with that. So next up, we're going to hear from three very strong environmental leaders. We're shifting gears a little bit here away from energy. Can I whistle? Whistle. I can't do one of those. Let me start again. We're going to hear right now, shifting away from energy. We're going to hear right now about, or from three very strong environmental leaders who are going to spotlight a few specific legislative initiatives that are in the works for the upcoming session. There are three separate issues. They're going to come up and speak at the podium about what they're doing. So the first person we have is Julianna Larue. She's an organizer at the Connecticut chapter of the Sierra Club that's working to advance their legislative efforts. And Juliana's always had a passion for the environment and earned a Bachelor of Science, Environmental Science from the Southern New Hampshire University. You, so Juliana is going to discuss one of Sierra Club's top priorities this year known as Superfund. And I think that's going to be a really interesting shift in terms of our focus of how we look at who's responsible for the pollution. And then, once again, because we're just going to go through the introductions and then just come one by one. And then Louise Washer, who serves on the board of the Pollinator Pathway, which she helped to create in 2017 and which is spread to over 300 towns across the region. She's president of the Norwalk River Watershed Association, a member of the Norwalk Mayor's Water Quality Committee. She's on the steering committee Hudson to Houstonic Regional Conservation Partnership. She heads up the Pesticide Reform Coalition, CPR, which has been leading the charge on pesticide legislation in Connecticut for a number of years now. And Louise is going to discuss this year's effort to establish a more comprehensive pesticide tracking and database. And then we'll finally hear from Alicea Charamut. She's the executive director of Rivers Alliance of Connecticut. And prior to that, she was the river steward for the Connecticut River Conservancy and had various roles at Trout Unlimited. Alicea also serves in a volunteer capacity, and boy, lots of hats, on the advisory board of the Connecticut Institute of Water Resources, as secretary of the Fisheries Advisory Council, as co-chair of the Water Planning Council Advisory Group, and she's also a former member of the Connecticut Council on Environmental Quality. So Alicea is going to update us on all things water right now, specifically this year with regards to riparian buffers, wake boats, aquarium, etc. So immediately after their presentations, Lily is going to come up and provide instructions for the three breakout groups that are going to happen before lunch. And again, there's not going to be time for Q&A for the three here, but please do submit questions through the Sligo. And I know that they will also be here for the rest of the day. I'm sure you can track them down. So with that, let me turn it over to Juliana.
Thank you, Lori. I hope you all can hear me okay. As Lori said, I'm Julianna Larue. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an organizer with the Sierra Club Connecticut. Additional to that, I am a young female climate activist who has been fighting this fight for many years, ever since I was a young kid. And I'm very honored to be standing up here to talk about something that is really important to young people. And I talked to many young people today, and I see you all in the room, so shout out to you. I just want to say that this is our future, and we need to be bold in the state, pass legislation that makes a change for us in our future. And I think that the Superfund does that. We need to talk, right? Climate change is wreaking havoc on Connecticut communities, with taxpayers facing soaring insurance rates, housing costs, utility bills, and health expenses. The Climate Superfund briefing paper that you all should have goes into grave detail about a bunch of costs in Connecticut costing in the millions. And I want you all to think about who's paying for these disasters in the state. I will tell you, it's not big oil, it's us, it's the taxpayers, right? Unless something changes, we will keep paying billions to clean up a crisis that we didn't cause. Big oil has been reporting record profits. That is not fair. That is not sustainable. And yeah, you can start the video, Lily. Hopefully it'll. I love that video, and I hope that that sits with you all and let you know the connection between big oil and the climate crisis. And I hope the word Superfund um, has is making a light bulb in your head. It's not a new idea. I think we all remember in the 1980s there was a federal Superfund passed. This is based off of that. It's not a new idea. It was passed in other states, and we can do it in this state. As I mentioned before, the Superfund briefing paper goes into detail about the climate cost to the state. All these photos on the screen have been the past 3 years. 3 years of multi-million dollar damages that we are paying in the state. Again, take a second to think of who's paying for that financial burden. And I hope you all are as angry as I am because we are paying for that. All of these climate damages need to be addressed and they need to be paid for. It is not fair for all of the burden to be passed on to us, Connecticut taxpayers, which is why the Connecticut has a real opportunity, a second chance to pass a climate super fund in the state. There is no time to waste, especially with who is in the federal administration right now. We must stand up, we must take charge, and show the federal administration that we can hold his big oil friends accountable. I want to be very clear when I say this. This did not have to happen. Choosing big oil over people was a choice. Ignoring science was a choice. Deceiving the public was a choice. And today we must make a different choice. We must choose people over polluters. We must choose accountability over corruption. And we must choose a future that works for Connecticut families, not fossil fuel executives. Again, I'm very fired up about this, and I hope you are as well. And you can take action. There's going to be a rally next week in Hartford. We need people there to show up. We need to show the legislature that people want this. They want the burden taken off of them to pay for climate damages. You can also scan the QR code and send a message to your legislator right now and ask them to support a climate super fund in the 2026 legislative session. There's no time to waste, so we must act fast now. And I thank you all for listening to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Juliana. Thanks, everybody. I don't know. Can I get this thing out? Can you hear me? I'm Louise Washer. I am an organizer of Connecticut Pesticide Reform, which is a coalition now of about 40 conservation organizations and individuals
working to reduce harms to the environment and human health caused by overuse of pesticides. Thanks for giving a spotlight to pesticides today. Many of you have heard me talk about this issue. We worked on neonics, passing a neonics bill for 4 years. We know we have pesticides in our rivers. The Norwalk River, where I live, USGS surveys monthly show about 30 pesticides in that river every year. So, but last year we had some good news. The advocates, so many of them in this room, actually passed a neonics bill. Amazing. We we were able to ban the use of neonicotinoid pesticides on lawns, turf grass, 350,000 acres in Connecticut. So that was it was not the full bill that we wanted, but it was a victory. And during that process, that 4 years of advocacy on that issue, it really set the stage for the bill that I'm going to talk about today. Is my little slide up? Yes. It brought the public's attention to the need for Connecticut to modernize its system of collecting and reporting pesticide use data. In hearings for the neonic bill, advocates present oops, yeah, sorry, with data from neighboring states, New York, New Jersey, that showed how, where, and in what amounts, neonics were being used. That data is important because it helps determine potential opportunities to reduce use while minimizing hardships to farms, for example, to landscaping businesses. We repeatedly heard from legislators, and rightly so, though, that they needed Connecticut data. Unfortunately, that sort of data is not available in Connecticut. It's not because we don't ask for it. It's not because DEEP doesn't collect it. Pesticide applicators and sellers have to collect and or submit data about what chemicals they're using, what amounts, for what, where. Sorry, the problem with our system for collecting this data and making it available to the public is just severely outdated. Before 2021, reports were just pieces of paper collected in a box at DEEP, and you could have a FOIA request and go down and look through all those papers to find out anything about what was being used where. After 2021, DEEP required that these paper reports be scanned and uploaded to their e-license portal. So now the reports are filed digitally, but they pull it up. Sorry, is that better? There's just pieces of paper that are uploaded. They're filed under the last name of the person who filled them out. And in order to get any information, you still have to look through every single one. The system is not searchable. And we can't create summaries like other states do about what's being used where. So last year, it was really helpful to this effort. Last year, the Connecticut Council on Environmental Quality published a report identifying the deficiencies in the way Connecticut collects and reports pesticide information. It highlights a list of resulting data gaps. I encourage you to go on their website and look at that. We use that report as a guide for creating the proposed Pesticide Data Modernization Act, we're calling it. We want a solution. We want a solution that doesn't ask more of pesticide applicators. This proposal directs DEEP to develop publicly accessible, searchable, online sales and use of pesticides into a database that is accessible to the public and searchable. The one thing that we did add to this that is not already collected is the pesticide treated seed issue came up during the whole neonicotinoids work that so many people in this room did. Treated seeds, I, there's a federal loophole that says any pesticide that's put on a seed is no longer considered a pesticide. So it's not monitored, it's not restricted anywhere in the country except Vermont is now tracking the use of treated seed. So we heard from, especially on this issue in the hearings on the neonics, we heard the question from legislators, a good question, how much of this seed is being used in the state? And we don't have an answer. So part of our bill does include the tracking of neonic treated seeds. Okay, I'm wrapping up. The seeds issue is really important. There's a growing body of research out of Cornell and the University of Vermont that shows consistently that the use of certain seeds, neonic treated seeds, is not increasing crop yields. So it's a significant source of these pesticides into our environment that we don't have any, we're not tracking at all. So we're really hoping that the Environmental Committee will raise this bill this session. It's a new idea, and they really need to hear from us. So please let your legislators know that you want to see something done to modernize our data tracking system. We know that in 2027, when neonics are no longer allowed to be used on lawn, we already see the replacement pesticides that are going to be used in their place. And that's sort of a never ending process. What we need is better science in Connecticut so that we can make better policy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am so glad that we are not the last ones before lunch because I don't want to stand between you and pizza. That would be the next person you're going to go sit in front of. So I'm Alicea Charamut. I'm the Executive Director of Rivers Alliance of Connecticut. Our name is a misnomer. We work on all water issues, surface waters, lakes, pond, groundwater, drinking water. It's all connected. It's all important. We do policy advocacy and education on water issues. We have 3 big issues that we're working on this year. 1 is vegetated riparian buffers. 2 is addressing the impacts of wake surfing. And 3 is subsurface sewage. I am only going to talk to you about 2 because for some reason, people never get excited about when people want to come talk about sewage. So if anybody has any idea how to make that sexy, please see me after. If you, back up 1. Yep. Okay. So if you've been here before, you've heard me talk about buffers. You're probably tired of hearing me talk about riparian buffers, but we made some progress last session. Through a special act, a working group was established to figure out how we can protect vegetation along our waterways so it can protect us. The importance of this, especially right now, as we are seeing these crazy short duration, really intense rainstorms that are damaging our infrastructure and destroying communities, is that this vegetation slows down stormwater, it filters pollution, it helps to reduce flooding, and it protects that infrastructure if it is done consistently. So as you can see in that picture right there, we're not talking about people losing access to their waterways, which is prettier, a lawn all the way down to that lake, or what you're seeing right here. People still have access to their dock, they have a beach there, but all of that beautiful vegetation there has all of those benefits for that lake and is going to make sure it is a place that people can use and enjoy for generations. And that's what we need in Connecticut. Next slide, please. I'm not sure where my picture went or where my other middle things. Is there? Try hitting a button again. No? No, back up. All right. Not sure what happened. Okay, so a lot of my information is in there. Connecticut, so we're behind. We're the only state in New England that does not currently have explicit protection for vegetation along our waterways. Every other state in New England has it. So the good news is that we are making progress in that working group. We have a consensus around some really important items. We need to translate that to action this legislative session. We can't wait. The science is there. We know protecting that vegetation is going to give us all of these benefits. We have to do it. So we need your support. What we're looking at, again, protecting that vegetation consistently along our waterways. When I'm talking about waterways, I'm not just talking about rivers and streams. I'm also talking about our lakes and ponds, because if we try to separate those resources out, we're not going to have those consistent protections that we need. And also, as many of you probably know, a lot of our lakes and ponds are struggling with very serious water quality issues, including algal blooms. And they need these tools to be able to protect those areas with that vegetation to help reduce and use that tool in their toolbox. Another thing I do want to mention too is that our inland wetlands commissions, they are the front line of protecting our local waters. And right now, they do not get enough support from DEP to be able to do that. So DEP needs to be given more resources to be able to have, we have 170 inland wetlands commissioners in Connecticut. Do you know how many people DEP has full time? And that's their only job working on this? 0. That has to change. If we're going to be able to keep our water clean, that has to change. So before we move on to the next slide, show of hands, who has heard of wake surfing or is familiar with it? Wake surfing. Oh, more people than I thought, actually. So next slide, please. So wake surfing, it's a relatively new recreational activity that a lot of our lakes are seeing a lot more of now. What you see on your left-hand side there is a depiction of someone wake surfing. You have a boat with very heavy ballasts that someone surfs behind without a rope, okay? What you see on the right-hand side there, that is a Google Maps image of Lake Warramog. That is a boat in wake surf mode. These boats create such big, long-lasting wakes, you can see it from space. Next slide, please. Oh, good, this slide has everything on it. Great. So again, these boats are designed to make really big waves. We're talking about uh, uh, like 3 feet high, all right? They last longer than most traditional boats. They have outsized impacts compared to other motorboats. Because they have these really heavy ballasts and they sit low and they actually are to make these big wakes move very slowly, they kick up sediment from the bottom. We already talked about the issues that our lakes are having with blue-green algae and other water quality issues. So these boats are actually either going to make this worse or undo all of the investment that our lake communities have put into solving the issues that have existed for decades. And another thing I want you to remember, because you're going to hear a lot of folks talk about how, oh, well, it's not a big deal. We just need 200 feet from shore and 20 feet of depth. They do it in other states, like Alabama. Connecticut's lakes are small, shallow, and environmentally fragile. So what do we want? We want to see at least 1,000 feet from shore, 30-foot minimum depth, 100-acre activity zone with at least 250 feet operational width, and ability for local commissions to adopt stronger measures. Why? Because there are people with really deep pockets and friends in high places who are trying to get the minimum on this. And if we don't fight for the protections we need, they're going to win. One thing I also want to mention, because who wants to hear good news? Yay! Who needs to hear good news? Yay! So there was an ordinance passed on Lake Warramog. The opposition filed a declaratory ruling to try to overturn that after it was passed by the 3 communities by 78%. DEP rejected it. Yes! I just heard about it this morning. It made my day, made my week. I'm out of time. And if you have any questions, I have information about wake surfing. Come see me.
everybody. So we'll be going into our breakout rooms. In the auditorium, we will be having effective communication, making the case. Will you hear from experts on effective communication strategies? On the 10th floor in room 1024, we'll be having Solar 2026, and that is where you hear the newest challenges and developments all in solar. And then on the 7th floor in room 702, we'll be having organizing for legislative wins with Jimmy Ticky on proven organizing strategies. And then after the breakout rooms, we'll be having lunch. And then make sure you are back in your seats by 1:15. We'll be having Senator Bob Duff address the audience. And then all the elevators in the back along with the staircases. Thank you guys. Yes, and then the rooms, communication will be in the auditorium, which is